right, so today we're going to talk about how the blood moves through the body, including how it moves through the heart and it goes to the lungs to get oxygen and to get rid of carbon dioxide. So when you look on page 453, there's an excellent diagram of the heart, a little bit simplified, but of the heart, the lungs, and then this represents the circulation in the entire body. So reading at the top, how does blood move through the body? It gives you a path, okay? So it says the blood is pumped from the right side of the heart to the lungs. From the lungs, it returns to the left side of the heart. The blood is then pumped from the left side of the heart to the body. It flows 2 tiny capillaries around the body before returning to the right side of the heart. Now, what it didn't mention is that it's picking up oxygen from the lungs and that it's getting rid of carbon dioxide at the lungs, and that as it goes through the body, it's picking up carbon dioxide waste from the cells and then giving those cells oxygen. But we're going to show that in our diagram. It says blood in the arteries that come out of the heart is under great pressure because of the force from the pumping action of the heart. Blood in the veins is under much less pressure than the arterial blood because the veins have larger internal diameters than the arteries do. The veins carry larger volumes of blood, but they carry them more slowly. So when it says blood moves in circuits, circuits is just another word for a circle, right? No beginning, no ending, it just keeps going. Blood moves in 2 loops or circuits around the body. The beating heart moves the blood to the lungs and also around the body. The flow of blood between the heart and lungs is called pulmonary circulation. Pulmonary means lungs. Okay, pulmo is lungs. As the blood passes through the lungs, carbon dioxide leaves the blood and oxygen is picked up. So the lungs, part of the respiratory system, are in charge of getting the oxygen into the body when you breathe. But the blood, the circulatory system or cardiovascular system actually is the part that gets that oxygen to the cells, so delivery of the oxygen. The oxygen-rich blood then flows back to the heart where it is pumped around the rest of the body. The circulation of blood between the heart and the rest of the body is called systemic circulation. Systemic just means the whole system, your whole body. Oxygen-poor blood returns to the heart from the blood cells in the systemic circulation. So what's the difference between pulmonary and systemic circulation? Pulmonary is the flow of blood from the heart to the lungs and back, and systemic is the flow of blood from the heart throughout the body and back to the heart. That's the difference. And it even tells you that right here in these little, okay? So there's your answer to number 16. How does circulation help maintain body temperature? We said that part of homeostasis is maintaining a balanced level or a steady level. One of the things you need to maintain is your body temperature, and the circulatory cardiovascular system helps with that. So circulation of blood helps homeostasis. When the brain senses that the body temperature is rising, it signals the blood vessels in the skin to widen. As the vessels get wider, the heat from the blood is transferred to the air around the skin. The transfer helps lower body temperature. If your brain senses that the body temperature is normal, then it tells the blood vessels to return to normal. When it senses your temperature is getting too low, it signals blood vessels near the skin to get narrower, which allows you to hold on to the heat and allows the blood to stay close to the internal organs to keep you warm. So it says put a box around the part of the diagram that shows the pulmonary circulation. Where in the diagram would you find oxygen-poor blood? Now, So pulmonary circulation, of course, is happening right here. And in this diagram, the blood that is less oxygenated or has poor oxygenation is shown with blue. Although we said all of our blood is red, it's never blue. They just used blue just like we would use on a map. If you said, okay, we're going to color the interstate highways red and we're going to color the county roads black. They could have picked any colors. They could have picked green or yellow or whatever, but they picked blue and red. Red representing the high oxygen level in the blood and blue representing the low oxygen level. So where would you find oxygen poor blood? In the veins coming back to the heart and in this one artery going to the lungs. Those are oxygen poor blood. Next page. Where are some problems that affect the cardiovascular system? You can read through these. Atherosclerosis, that's hard to say, hypertension, which is high blood pressure, and heart attacks and strokes. You do not have to do question 18, but you do need to read each of these so that you could tell me what each of these problems are, the definition of each. On to the next page. Respiratory system. Before we talk about that, we are going to do the diagram of the heart. And so here we have a picture of the heart. I've labeled all of the blood vessels for you, but we're going to label the actual heart. Now, realize that when we say right and left on a picture like this, an anatomy picture, it's the patient or the person's right or left. So pretend that you have a person that's laying on their back, right? And if they're on their back, this is their head, and then this would be their left, and this would be their right. So it's not your right and your left, but it's the patient's or the person's right and left. So it's backwards, actually, to what you're looking at, okay? So if this is where the blood comes from the body, from the upper body, it comes into the superior vena cava. From the lower body, it comes in through the inferior vena cava. And there's actually an opening on the back of this where that comes in. This is the right atrium. Sometimes you'll hear it called atria, right atrium. This is the tricuspid valve. The blood comes deoxygenated, right? Low oxygen, high carbon dioxide. It comes in through the right atrium from the body. It goes into the bottom chamber, which is the right ventricle. And looking here, do you see how muscular that is? And it's kind of in the shape of a V. That's how I remember that the bottom chambers are ventricles and the top are atria because they look kind of circular, kind of like an A. So your low oxygenated blood is here in the ventricle. Then it's going to go up through the pulmonic valve into the left pulmonary artery. Remember, arteries take blood away from the heart. And so this is low oxygenated blood, and it's going to go into the left pulmonary artery, which goes to the left lung. And then it also, this is the same vessel back here, this is the right pulmonary artery, and it goes into the right lung. Now, at the lungs is where we get the oxygen and drop off the waste carbon dioxide. And so when it comes back from the lung, it's going to be oxygenated. We're going to use red to show it's oxygenated. And so from the lung on the left, there are two pulmonary veins that it's going to enter into. This will be the left atrium. On the right lung, it's going to enter onto these pulmonary veins and also drop into the left atria or atrium. Now it's going to go through the mitral valve into the lower chamber on the left, which is the left ventricle. It's going to go through an aortic valve, and that leads behind behind this left pulmonary artery into the aorta. Now the aorta is the largest artery in your body, and it has an aortic arch. All of this goes out to the body. So we could actually draw a little head at the top if we wanted it. So the top part goes to the head and arms, and then behind, you see how this travels back behind? This is there. And this goes to your lower body, taking the oxygenated blood to the cells of the body. So we could even write to body, actually to the lower body, and this is to the upper body. And your superior vena cava is from body, and your inferior is from body. All right. And so this cycle just continues. Once it gets to the body, it goes into the capillaries so that it can diffuse the oxygenated blood into the body cells. Those body cells then diffuse the carbon dioxide into the red blood cells, and then it comes back and it starts all over again. So you could start this pathway. I could say, okay, if this is 1, what's 2? Well, 2, and then 3, and then the body would be 4. I could say, if this is 1, then this would be 1, 2, 3. So anywhere, there's no real start and stop to it, but it is a continuous flow. You do need to know the chambers of the heart. You don't necessarily need to know all of the blood vessels, but if you like I said, if you are interested in the heart and different things, there are some defects of the heart sometimes that children are born with and that have to do with these valves, or they have to do with this divider. And so the oxygenated blood and the deoxygenated blood, if there's a problem here, a septal defect, then they end up mixing. And so the blood that's getting out to the body is not fully oxygenated. It's mixed with, blood that has carbon dioxide in it. That can be a problem. They usually go in there to fix that, open heart surgery or whatnot. But so it does interact very much with the lungs, which are part of the respiratory system, which is the next part that we're going to talk about. So on page 455, you have the respiratory system. It says, as you read, underline the gas that is needed by your body for cellular respiration. So as you read that, you're going to talk about that at the bottom. Scuba divers breathe air from tanks that are strapped to their bodies. Check the box next to the gas you would expect to find in the greatest concentration in the air tank on the diver's back, and then in the air bubbles that they are exhaling. So this is for the air bubbles. What do you expect to find? Exhale, getting rid of, and intake from the tank. So you're going to put an X on the one that you think would be in high levels there. And then on to the next page, the parts of the respiratory system. So you're going to read and highlight this, finding all of the parts of the respiratory system. And then at the bottom it says, draw arrows showing the direction of airflow into the lungs. How would an object that's blocking the bronchus affect the airflow? And then some disorders and diseases of the respiratory system. You do not have to do question number 24, but you do need to do question 22 and 23. And then at the bottom there's some pictures of an emphysema lung and of a healthy lung. So there's a very different picture there of how they are different, and that's your question. How can you tell the diseased lung from the healthy lung? And then if you have time, you can go on to page 458 and 459.